fueled and rejig to start with our post-break sessions. And after that sumptuous meal, I'm sure you all are going to have a tough time keeping yourself alert and awake and attentive to what is being shared on stage. But I'm sure the esteemed panelists that are going to be coming up on stage shortly are going to set your minds ticking, brainstorming with near ideas and valuable insights. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce the next topic of the panel discussion, which is how to set the scene for tomorrow. Is it the creative work? Chairing the session, we have Mr. Sekhar Reddy, Vice President, Indian Staffing Federation, and COO and Director, Innovsource. So may I please request Mr. Sekhar Reddy to kindly come on stage. Joining him on stage, ladies and gentlemen, we have esteemed panelists, Mr. A.G. Rao, Trustee, Indian Staffing Federation, MD, India, Manpower Group. Please give them a huge round of, ladies and gentlemen. We have an esteemed group of panelists, esteemed members, who will be sharing their valuable insights and brainstorming new ideas and sharing the valuable insights. Joining them on stage, we have Mr. Angelo Vecchio, Country Manager and MD, Adecco, India. Mr. Asim Handa, Trustee, Indian Staffing Federation and CEO, GI Group, India. Next, we have Mr. Moorthy Uppaluri, CEO, Randstad, India. And last but definitely not the least, we have Mr. Barry Asin, President, Staffing Industry Analysts. And now I hand over the floor to the chairperson of the session, Mr. Sekhar Reddy, to carry forward the proceedings for the session.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the toughest time to hold a panel discussion. Welcome all of you panelists. I first invite Barry Asin to give us an overview of creating work. So he's got a small presentation. So I invite Barry to give an introduction.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's a delight to be here. Thank you to ISF and to CIET for inviting me. Thank you to all of you for coming back after lunch and not going up to your room to take a nap. I think that we're very excited about our panel discussion here. I think that it's an important topic, and I think you'll find your time spent here was well worthwhile. So for those of you who, if we could have the presentation that comes up here. Very good. Let's see here. So for those of you who don't know Staffing Industry Analysts, just very briefly, we're a unique organization in the entire ecosystem in that we're an independent research firm focused on the world of staffing and contingent work. We do our research both for the staffing suppliers and other suppliers in the industry, as well as for the large multinationals, the buyers, as we would say. We do that and deliver services to them through research and advisory work, through conferences and events, editorial, as well as certification and training. So my role here today, I think, is to provide an independent perspective on the industry and the way it's changing. And I hope I'll be able to show you some of the ways that the industry is developing and how there's lots of good things ahead, but it's definitely not going to be the same world that we've seen in the past. So a couple of things just to touch on that. First off, we do a lot of research on the global market, and we estimate in 2015 over $400 billion US dollars spent on staffing services on a global basis. This makes this industry a very major player on the world scene. The publicity for the industry is nowhere near the actual impact of this business and the size and impact. And in fact, if you think about not just the formal staffing industry, but if you think about the broader world, as we say, for contingent work, we estimate that as over $3 trillion US annually spent on that, including all the independent contractors, consultants, and all the workers who are working on short-term contracts. This new world of flexible work is a critical part of the global economy, and an important, this industry plays a hugely important role in that. The chart you see up in front of you is a look at the 15 largest markets in the world, proportionate to the size of the market. I'm pleased to say that of these 15, India has now reached the top here and is now part of that club of the largest markets in the world. This was not true even 5 years ago, and I think that illustrates the very rapid growth of flexi staffing services here in India. And I'm sure as we look over time, you'll see changes in the size of the different markets, and certainly we expect lots of growth here in India. The market on a global basis is growing by our estimates at 5 to 6% a year, according to our latest research, and that, of course, we think is going to continue to grow into the future. So this is a great business to be in. It's an important part of the economy. It's a growing part of the world economy. Here in Asia-Pacific region, India ranks as the 4th largest market in Asia-Pacific. The Japanese staffing market is very well developed and has been operating for quite some time. But that's followed by Australia and China as largest markets. India, as I said, is the 4th largest market. And many of the other markets here in Asia-Pacific you can see beyond that. So $86 billion spent in the Asia-Pacific region. India, a growing portion of that spend. And incidentally, I'd be happy to share a copy of these slides. I see many of you taking pictures. Be happy to, if you just send me an email, I'll be happy to share a copy with you at the end. So a large and global market, and part of the reason that, or an indication of the large global nature of this business is the diversity of global staffing firms that exist. These are the 15 largest global staffing firms around the world, many of them represented here in the Indian market. And you can see the list there that runs down through with Adecco and Randstad, Manpower Group, Allegis, Recruit, and Kelly Services, and on down through the list. There are 7 different nationalities that are included in that top 15 list. As of yet, there is not an Indian-based staffing company as a member of the top 15 club. I suspect when next we come back in a few years, we will see an Indian staffing firm here among the largest global players in the industry. So the industry is large and growing. It is also, though, definitely changing. And to talk about a few of the ways that it's changing, would just like to touch on a number of things. The first off is that it's becoming more professional and more highly skilled in terms of the industry. We do an annual survey of large multinational buyers, Fortune 500 companies, and we ask them about their use of staffing and contingent work. When we asked them in our latest survey, they said in the future they will use more than they have used in the past. They see this as an important component of their HR strategy. They also think that and this slide shows that the mix of workers that they use is going to be changing. The sum of this is that the mix of the workers that they're using is becoming more highly skilled, more strategic to their businesses. The high-skilled contingent workers, statement of work, and project consultants are what they think most will change positively in terms of a mix of their workforce. They do think that they're going to be using as a percent of their workers in the future fewer lower skilled contingent workers. And I think this highlights the challenge for the industry to grow with that skill level as those skills and the more professional and higher level needs of clients are growing. Now, as the business is growing, the engagement models as well are changing for large organizations to interact with the staffing industry and with the whole industry around it. What we've seen over the last decade has been a story of the growth of vendor management systems among large global firms, and a growth along with those vendor management systems of more sophisticated programs for managing the talent supply chain. Among contingent labor, the evolution has been from very decentralized programs to preferred suppliers, to the use of master vendors, and now more and more the use of managed service providers and outsourcing of the management of the entire contingent labor process. Meanwhile, on the permanent employment side of things, we've gone from a more decentralized mode of operating to many companies implementing recruitment process outsourcing, the outsourcing of the permanent hiring, the more traditional hiring. As we look to the future, we think we'll see a blending of these two models and more of a total talent approach. Total talent acquisition, certainly, over time perhaps, total talent management. And by that I mean a more strategic use of contingent labor, more integrated with planning around traditional hires, with companies actually making a conscious decision of what type of worker they're going to use, what classification is right for the particular need that they have. So that has led, not only are the engagement models changing, but the ecosystem that staffing firms are operating in is changing as well. And I thank Anne-Marie for sharing this slide earlier. As I said, we are increasingly looking at what we term the workforce solutions ecosystem. And so where staffing is at its core, permanent placement, temporary staffing, increasingly we see companies in the industry and around operating more broadly in this ecosystem. And that includes a whole suite of third-party workforce solutions, from other workforce solutions, outplacement and consulting, testing and training, to process outsourcing, managed service provider, RPO, business process outsourcing even, to payrolling and compliance, and contracting and consulting. Many businesses in the space expanding into solutions work, statement of work consulting. The line between a providing labor and providing a solution to clients is blurring. And finally, and very importantly, is all the impact of talent acquisition technology. And that includes things like vendor management systems and job boards and applicant tracking systems, but also includes what we call the human cloud, the gig economy, and that impact on the world of work as we look into the future. And if we think about what's next, I think that impact cannot be underestimated. So we write research on not only on the core staffing business, we've recently written a few reports on the gig economy and human cloud. This is an overview of the landscape in that world. I think you'll see more and more about this as we look into the future. We comprise this of three main areas: online staffing, which is mostly about connecting individuals with work to be done at companies, but doing it more over an online platform. Online services, where the work comes bundled with a variety of services. The most well-known globally of that is Uber, where you're connecting people with work, along with a driving service competing in the taxi business. We also look at crowdsourcing as well, where work is getting done by a crowd of anonymous workers and work being broken up into small bits. So this, I think, is the next thing that's going to be changing in the world of work, and it is a huge opportunity, frankly, for staffing firms in India in particular. With large pools of talent, it is becoming easier and easier to connect pools of workers with work that needs to be done anywhere in the world. Previously, only very large organizations, the IBMs and Ciscos and Apples of the world, were able to access talent on a global basis to outsource to them. Now more and more small and mid-sized companies will be able to do that as well. So that, of course, is not all that's changing. As we look to the next generation of change, we can see impacts already beginning to happen in artificial intelligence and robotics, areas like robots and drones, bots, software-based tools that solve problems, artificial intelligence and cognitive computing. I work in Mountain View, California, in the heart of Silicon Valley, with Google right next door. Self-driving cars are here right now. I pass them every day on the way to work. I can tell you that these cars are much better drivers than the typical Californian who is spending his time texting and looking out the window. These things are changing. They're going to have profound impacts on your clients, on the world of work in general, but they're also going to have profound impacts on the way that you do work. If we look here in India, where margins are very thin for the staffing industry, and need to automate is going to become increasingly important to have a profitable business. So if the recruiters of today are more manual, on the phone and talking, I suspect that we'll see recruiters of tomorrow more automated or making use of more technology tools to operate more effectively, to staff and fill orders quicker, to make better matches. We're beginning to see that. I think it will be a blend of humans and technology, and we're right now just at the beginning of that change. So there are many exciting changes ahead, many challenges ahead for the industry. If you're interested in a copy of the slides, just send me an email. My email is there. I look forward to the rest of the discussion with our panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barry. The last two slides of Barry's presentation are very scary. We may not have such conferences 10 years from now if those two slides continue being there about the automation. Nevertheless, that's not something that we can ignore. Coming back to the topic, creating work, the future of the staffing industry. As we sit here in India, Indian staffing industry is very, very nascent as far as the formal part is concerned. And in the last 5 years, as Barry has shown, that we appeared on the top 15, though I'm not very happy with that small orange circle for India. The next 5 years, it's going to be a much bigger, if not orange, a red circle, which is going to be probably in the top 5. And much of that growth is going to come from migration from the unorganized sector or the informal sector into the formal sector. Right. So we expect by 2020 the numbers to almost double. We are talking about 2.2 million, 2.5 million. We expect that to double by 2020. And several new factors are coming into play. Some of them are mobility, then you have flexibility, and then you have technology. These things are going to play a very, very important role in how the staffing industry is going to shape itself and how the staffing industry is going to influence the Indian economy at large. I'll now invite each of our panelists to share their views. As you know, all our panelists represent large staffing companies in India, plus Barry would add the international flavor to it. Angelo, could you share your views in about 3-4 minutes?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. As we heard during the morning, the world of work is changing very fast everywhere, mostly in a country like India, where the economy is growing very, very well, and where the outlook looks very, very positive for the future. We are in a people business, and for this reason, we have to take care all the people can give us additional boost in our path in the next few years. So I would like to give you an overview about some data. Today, 65% of the population is in working age in India. 79% of the workforce is in age group of 21-30 years old. And as you have already got this great information, by 2020, India will become the youngest population of the world. And another important date, I think, is the median age. By 2050, will be 38 years old in India, versus 54 in Italy, my country, 53 in Japan, and 50 in Germany. This is a great opportunity for all of us, for India as a country, and for all our sector industry. But in the same time, it could be a big challenge if all of us, we will not be able to make all these young million talent employable in the next 10 years. And the risk is to foster higher unemployment and poverty. So having a strong and solid GDP growth plus great young workforce, I firmly believe this can represent a strong asset for the future of India as a country and for all our operators of the market. So, however, if you look at the breakdown of the employment in India, it's quite evident that government has to continue to invest in education and training. Why I'm saying this? Because 50% of the population in India is still employed in farming activity, contributing to only 17% of the GDP. 23% of the workforce is employed in manufacturing, contributing 24% of the GDP. And 27% of the population work in the service sector, contributing to 50% of the GDP. As of now, the growth is there with a significant revenue growth year by year. And we have a strong capability to manage big volumes, big quantity. I think nobody else is able around the world to manage these big volumes as we are able to do in India. But in the same times, I think that there are some improvement areas. Good to know that we have some improvement area because we can continue to grow in an healthy way. First of all, there is an important skill imbalance and talent mismatch. In the Global Talent Competitiveness Index 2016, India ranks 89 position out of 109. Why? Because talent attraction, as you were saying before, is one of the biggest challenges for India. And China and India, two of the largest economies in Asia, are net exporter of talent. Positioning and attractiveness also are very important for all of us. And for our sector industry, we need to continue to be much more, be recognized in the market. If we want to continue to attract talent, but in the same time to retain talent. Because as we know, another important challenge in India is not just to talk about gross margin or new solution or technology, is the retention of the good talent. Another key word I think that will involve all of us in the next future, starting from today, is mobility. It's becoming even more important for employer and for employee alike. We need to be hyper-connected if we want to survive in this globalized economy. And also flexibility will help all the organizations to remain competitive. In this unpredictable market, it's impossible don't be flexible. I think this is my point of view, it's mandatory to be flexible. And for us, it will be so important to support all our clients, all our associates and candidates to drive not just their needs for today, but to help them to develop their strategy in the next 2-3 years at least. Our sector industry has to play a key role, grant a secure job. It's so important, mostly in India, secure job, and the same time for all the employee, and the same time will help to reduce this big cake, the name is unorganized market. And what we have to do, we have to create a very strong link between talent and economic development. So what we need to do? I think that we need to continue to ask the government to support us to remove the bureaucracy. It's important to do as many our speakers before us, they said some structural reform has to be there to remove bureaucracy. of the in the market, to have much more simplification of the labor market. And at the same times, public and private has to continue to invest a lot in education and training in vocational skills. And last but not least, we have to contribute all together as a one team to support startups, as the current government is doing very well with Make in India campaign. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelo. Some very important issues Angelo has brought to our notice. One is the changing demographics. We have been talking about baby boomers and Gen X and Gen Y. I think that has moved on to Gen Z, and after that, I don't know what else. So these people demand different level of commitment from employers, different category of working, different way of rewarding themselves, etc. So we have to wait and watch and discover how those things will evolve. Another very important issue that Angelo highlighted is the skilling, right? The skilling, and where is the actual skilling happening and where is it required? What is the kind of skilling happening and what is required? And of course, legislation is something that we all want the government to support us in different forms. Over to Mr. Moorthy. Can I have your views?
Thank you. I just tried to structure my talk into a few segments. Let me talk about what's changing, and then probably what are the opportunities that we can help with, and what are some of the challenges and what have you. So within the time I have. As Barry has alluded to, there's a lot of change that is coming our way either through technology and or the ecosystem at large. I think what I call it as jobs, the jobs are changing themselves because of automation, like the robotics or the machine learning and what have you. And the who seeking the jobs, they are changing. That is the demographics that Angelo has spoken about, the multi-generational workforce, the diverse talent and what have you. And how people will find jobs is also dramatically changing, which influences all of us, the role that we play in building such economic growth. So that's the massive change that I call as delta. Then let's talk about the opportunity. What is the opportunity that's available to us in India just staring at us? One, at a very high level, I'm not going to elaborate on these. One is an inclusive growth, right? The unorganized sector and whatever it is. So there is an opportunity right in front of us, which could be brought into the fold to, multiply the growth and the impact. Two, the domestic consumption, because so far, a lot of growth in the IT or IT-enabled sectors has been, primed by the demands placed on them from the developed economies. But now the domestic consumption, domestic market itself is becoming more attractive, so that will drive growth of both the staffing and recruitment businesses. And just like I normally am a big advocate of learning from other mature industries, as most of us have taken learnings from the manufacturing industry, just-in-time inventory. That pretty much applies to even talent. Most of the people are looking at, hey, I don't want to invest into the talent. I want the talent when I need, where I need, and so that it can hit the ground running. So the onus is on us as the supply chain for such talent to be more prepared to feed those trends. So that's an opportunity that India has. And something I'm very big advocate of is talent on cloud, right? If there is trained talent that can be deployed immediately, it's almost like equivalent to the SaaS, the software as a service or what have you. The talent is being on the cloud, giving the elasticity, the fungibility to go up and down that people would want. And the beauty with India is that India doesn't have the legacy that some of the other countries would have. It's a half glass full as I look at it. One is the deregulation that is yet to be done. That is a lot of opportunity ahead of us. And the legacy that we do not have, either in terms of technology or the baggage, is we can quickly adapt and be agile and jump on the bandwagon and quickly move forward. The biggest blessing that this economy has, and we all have, is it being a knowledge economy. I'll make it very simple from a P&L perspective. When you look at the P&L statement of a company driven by knowledge workers vis-a-vis the company driven by manufacturing or blue-collar workers, if you look at the P&L or a bill of materials, let us say, you look a lot of costs coming from materials, let's say in an automotive industry or what have you, and the labor component is relatively a smaller component. The same thing when you flip into a knowledge economy, into a company that has knowledge workers, you see 70 to 80% of their costs are in the personal expenses. So there is a lot of opportunity in terms of the billions of dollars that Barry has spoken about, and those bubbles still increasing. It presents a shitload of opportunity for all of us. So I feel, pardon my French, so that's fabulous opportunity both from India market perspective and also Delta. Very quickly on the trends. I think there is a significant trend that is beginning to happen, and I think India should be the first one to jump on and lead that change, is instead of we taking people to work every day, if we can take work to people, we'll solve many of the other problems too. So that is begun in a very small way. If you think about telecommuting or if you think about flexibility, think big. In terms of, and think about, I also said there's an imagination that I just wanted to talk about a little down the line, or in closure probably is, think about a world where individuals don't prepare their own CVs. There's no CV, there's no interview, there's no assessment. People directly walk to work on day one. How? Let me explain. And it's happening in bits and pockets of the world. The CVs that we believe normally are dressed up and built by the individuals to present themselves the best. And you look at LinkedIn's or any other portals that are out there, people try to put it in their endorsements, recommendations, and what have you. If your experiences are validated and your CV is built and created by the people you have worked with, that itself is an endorsement. So it starts as the CV is built by your experiences as people have seen that, number one. And your assessments are conducted by those people who had the opportunity to work closely with you, two. And most importantly, people would walk into the work on day one. There is a beautiful company that Randstad has invested in, which we call GigWalk. How many of you have heard about GigWalk? Anybody? Yeah, a few hands up. Yep. So Randstad has set aside some 100 million euros to invest into technology companies. And GigWalk is a fabulous software that fundamentally enables this. If you are a validated, assessed worker on the database of a company like any one of us, Randstad in this case, and if there is job or demand available with any of our clients, you just get, it's almost like the Uber cabs that are being deployed. You get, hey, there's a job available, do you want to go sign up? You pick up the job, you do it when you have time before you catch your next movie, and you're going to be paid by the hour into your bank account. So the concept of work and taking the work to people is going to be a reality in the not too distant future. Very quickly, I'll take just a minute or two, Mr. Reddy. Employer branding is significant in this war for talent. Employers standing out and articulating their employee value proposition is becoming an imperative, and it's not a choice anymore. And we think about the data explosion and the technology disruption that's going to change all the way we work, and all of us work, is going to be talking about data analytics. There is so much of data footprints that we're going to leave all over the place. And I think this industry fundamentally, which touches millions and billions of people, can benefit by really analyzing and presenting things of value to them. Last but not least, the levers I talk about, the things that we need to get out of, extremely important, is not overly commoditizing our services. We are so caught up in commoditization of our services, and the discussion every time is on price and volume-based discussions. That really makes me sick in the stomach. Out of commoditization, please. And so it's where to? Value-based and solution-driven. And two, as probably there might be a discussion on, getting out of time and materials kind of engagement to probably scope of work and outsourcing and outcome-based and economic value add. So that is the evolution I see. I think I need to conclude. Last but not least is, thank you, Angelo. The last but not least is a thought-provoking article, and I think this is a movement, I would call it, not just a paper that Ram Charan has published, the changing role of HR, right? Challenging how HR can move the value chain is very thought-provoking, because we as stakeholders enabling the success of HR in the corporate world, we got to be aligning ourselves and leading the change, leading the change upfront. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moorthy. I personally would disagree on the HR manager's role in the future. Nevertheless, a couple of newer issues that Mr. Moorthy has brought about is the concept of on-demand services, or like just-in-time or whatever. As we draw inspiration from manufacturing, like Uber is the example that is given. Work is here and here is the worker, so can you just deliver that? That's a big challenge that is going to come up to the staffing industry and India Inc. as a whole. Let's move on to Asim for his views.
Thanks, Reddy. I think a lot of my co-panelists have already taken up issues or subtopics, as they said, whether it's the opportunity, it's the size of the economy, et cetera, et cetera. But I think how do we make this happen is the biggest challenge that I see happening in India. What is it that we as staffing industry need to do or think about to bring about this change? And I think it has to be a huge partnership approach between either the government and the staffing industry, or it's a public-private partnership, or it's the organizations and the staffing industry working together to make it happen. While we all spoke about the demographic advantage that we have in India of a huge young population, nearly 50% of the population being, in 2020 under 25 years, or the largest population, but somewhere down the line, we all got to work together to make this happen. And I think sooner or later, we may see a lot of international mobility, and that's one another aspect that I feel the staffing industry can play a huge role in, of exporting jobs out of India with that kind of a huge population. How do we ensure that there is good employability and job opportunities available for that population, not just in India, but outside the borders? And I think across the borders, if we look at it, how do we move people from one area into another? And that's where I think the role of technology and a whole lot of other issues that we just put on the table will surely come up. And I think, as what Reddy said, referring to Barry's presentation earlier, the size of the Indian market vis-a-vis even in APAC is so small today. It's barely 5% of the value of the entire APAC staffing volume that's happening in just the APAC. Forget about at the global level. So if we were to move from that 5% to even doubling that over the next 3 or 4 years, it represents an opportunity close to about $10 billion for us. And I think that's where the movement from the organized to getting the unorganized sector kind of, move into the organized sector would be very, very critical for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Asim. Of course, his emphasis was again on skill management and PPP, public-private partnership, which is definitely going to play a large role. Views from Mr. Ejira.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Good afternoon, everyone. So, if this industry has to grow, it has to be led by the economic growth in the country. So, what we have seen last couple of years, economy is growing, but is this industry growing at the same rate? I doubt. It's my view, what I'm seeing is economy is growing, but I don't think the equal number of jobs are created, number one. So how do we work with the government to work on this particular subject? Otherwise, what will happen is, so we are talking about automation. Yeah, so automation is important, but the country like India, sometimes people say that these views are radical. I don't like automation. Right? We have people to do. We have to create the employability. Otherwise, it may lead to some social issues, whatever it might be. We have to balance between the automation. Yes, if you want to automate something, automate to an extent where it can improve your efficiencies, right? Improve the lifestyle of the people. Those are the areas where we need to focus on the automation. That's one. And second thing is the skills. Today, if you look at this, we as an industry facing this particular issue, the skills. One is the core skills, and second thing is the soft skills. The third thing is the way, I can call it as a behavioral, right? There is no loyalty around this. Yeah, we can't expect loyalty if he is not assured of a job. As an industry, we all have to work together and see how do we treat the contractors or the temporary staff at par with the permanent employees, and how can we give them the job security? How do we treat them? This all will play a very, very critical role going forward in the growth of this industry. So that's one. And using the technology, when automation is different in my view from the technology, to how do we polish this industry further? For example, Barry had shown a beautiful slide, how the recruiters are going to look like in 3-4 years from now. It may be good to cover some of these areas, identify the right people for the right job, identifying the right attitudes for the right skill, right jobs, right? This all may help us. So we have a long way to go, given the way by 2030 India may be a $10 trillion economy. We have to see, can we reach the stage of Japan? In our region, Japan, this industry size is about $50 billion. Can we target to go there? Right? So we need to put a framework for this. We need to work with the governments. We have to work among ourselves and see what are the various steps we need to take to reach to a substantial number. There is a lot of responsibility lies in this room. So we all have to own it up as ISF members, and we have to get some of the best practices using CET capabilities in the world. I think that's all my views. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. Again, we have the emphasis on technology and on public-private partnerships. These two are key, as most people have mentioned these things. Okay, so now we have a very, very big target, and we are far, far behind from achieving that target. And the sad part is, it's a moving target. It's moving very, very fast. And what are the factors that are helping in that moving target? One is the changing demographics, the changing way in which people behave, and then the huge gap between where we are and where we need to catch up. So I'd like to ask Angelo, what role would technology play in catching up? And like Moorthy said, India has got no legacy. So we got this advantage of jumping a track, ditching a technology, or ditching a mechanism completely and just jumping to the next one and catching up time. So what role do you think technology is going to play in the staffing industry?
Yeah, from my point of view, I think that all of us, we are already investing in that direction. It's mandatory if we want to continue to remain competitive in the market. So I think that the technology has to play a key role in the future, because now all the young people, the age I was thinking before, 20 years old, 30 years old, they want to find a job by app or using their smartphone. They don't want to invest time to come in our branch in all the projects as we are used to do. And now we have to be ready to catch up them very quickly, to send them message. We are looking for a great opportunity for you, so user-friendly, and because everything is going through the digital channel. So the technology, it will be so important for three most important reasons for me. First of all, we have to be able to attract in different way talent. Second topic is to understand, in the same time, how can we catch clients with a different approach using lead generation, as we are already doing in other countries, very easily. And last but not least, how can we deliver our solution, our services in different way using online staffing platform? So all these three things can represent a big opportunity to simplify, to be much more efficient in the future.
Thank you. New HR solutions, like we hope and expect that the way the entire HR is going to deliver manpower or deliver talent to usable companies or to companies who are going to use them is definitely changing. We spoke about on-demand services and how that's going to change the way temping or staffing is going to work. Moorthy, you have any views on that, how the on-demand services are going to change the way we work?
Yeah, I think one quick example, probably so that it strikes home. Let's talk about the last mile of execution on the e-commerce or logistics, the delivery guys, right? Let's talk about. And today, if you really look at the fragmented market or fragmented demand that we see, you see there are delivery boys working for a food and beverage industry, let's say, just as an example, by the way, just I'm picking some names. Let's say like some pizza company is there, and there are some delivery boys for a pizza company. And now you look at the seasonality or the time during which they would be kept busy is from blah to blah in a given day. And then if you look at the other service demand in probably a banking or whatever industry, and again, for a courier guy or whatever, it is the same kind of skills that are required, but in a different demand pocket. And now there is a different manpower requirement that's out there. If and when, it's more of when than if these can be aggregated and these services can be provided in a non-conflicting, non-competing, and in a shareable basis, the productivity is skyrocketing. And for a staffing company, which would hold those resources on their payroll, but can cater to non-competing, non-conflicting multiple clients, and the HR service provided is of humongous return. So this is, by the way, the necessity is the mother of invention. If and when we will not be able to cater to the demands placed by one segment or one vertical, and where the demand is being fed to the other, these kind of innovative inventions need to come into play. So there are a lot of innovation that can come from India, which I call it as reverse innovation, because the challenges that are presented in India are pretty unique, and the supply of talent is also rather unique. So if we can create the solutions which can be even exported world over, that would be, this is just an example of demands and aggregation of the supply end, and where we can play a key role in driving such change.
Thank you. In the morning and even yesterday in some discussions, we spoke about talent export. India exports talent in certain domain areas. And we also spoke about, I want hands, but I get a human being, right? So I'm putting that in this together. Plus, India has been sought after for cost arbitrage and not for skills, right? And of course, these three aspects need to get reversed. So how do you think the staffing industry can work on, Asim, to create India as a skill resource and not just a cost arbitrage supplier?
I think it's already happening to some extent, as what we discussed in the panels in the morning. Moving from just a cost arbitrage model to a complete transformation model, as what we were talking in the IT industry, is already beginning to happen. And I think this is where the partnership or the public-private partnership will play a very important role. And also our education system, I think, needs to go through a complete revamp in terms of looking at the skill sets that we would need in people down the line. And I think this is where the government, and whether it's the staffing industry or it could be a recruitment industry or just general private enterprise, need to come forward and look at the ways and value additions that we need in a normal human being in terms of the demands that, or the skills that will be in demand in various countries across the globe. With the young population, obviously the challenges, their own mindset, etc., is very different to what we were referring to, or what Angelo just referred to. There's no longer this concept of coming to a branch with a profile and looking or seeking a job. The way jobs would be 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line is very, very difficult to visualize today. What the scenario would be, what technologies would come forward, we're all just guessing right now. But yes, the actual scenario may be very, very different to what we are anticipating or what we are visualizing at this stage. So partnership model again will play a very important part in skilling people to meet or cater to the demands that will come up in various countries across the globe.
Thank you, Asin. Like in most wars, the enemy is all powerful because they don't have rules to follow. But the army or the armed forces who are fighting that enemy have to follow all the norms. They cannot use some weapons, they cannot use some means, etc. Similarly, the unorganized sector is one very big enemy for all of us. And the organized sector is at a disadvantage to that extent. We have to compete with the unorganized sector in the market, and invariably to very, very wide gap in pricing, etc. So how do you think we as a staffing industry can come together to fight the unorganized sector, or rather, I would not say fight, to migrate the unorganized sector to the organized sector? Because all said and done, they are also responsible for creating jobs.
See, what we have to do is we have to create the awareness, one in the client's mind. Right? Yeah, when I say that, it's easy to create awareness in the Fortune 500 companies or India 500 companies or India top 1,000 companies. Second thing is, now I think the way the government is moving, the way the law is changing, I think if this unorganized sector doesn't follow the rules at some point of time, I think they will be in trouble. Right? So the most important thing is, again, again, we have to work with the government and see what all the steps we need to, what all the things we need to put in place to control this menace. I don't call it as menace. In some places in the deep, let's say, class B, class C, class D cities, some of us cannot serve that market. So obviously, from there, a lot of grooming of the small entrepreneurs is happening. To be fair to them, there are some people who follow the rules thoroughly. And yeah, majority of the people keep cutting the ways, right? So again, we have to put some good systems in place. We have to work with the government, and we have to create a lot of awareness in the corporates and SMEs. I think that is the only way. It cannot happen overnight. It will take few years if we all put in the sincere efforts. I think ISF also, as an ISF, we also have to play a major role on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Job creators and skilling companies are constantly at war. Just like we have the marketing guys and the operations guys in every company fighting with each other. The marketing guys go and bring an order, and the operating guys say that we cannot deliver this. Similarly, the skilling companies are doing some skilling at some level based on some statistics, while job creators are looking for some other skills. And to add to that, in a country like India, we have the different states, different cultures, different cities, B and C and D cat cities coming up now. How do you think we can bridge this gap by bringing jobs to people, or people to jobs, or getting the right skills built up? Barry, could you share your views on how you think India should work on that?
So, you know, if the question then is more about this connecting jobs to people, I think there's a great opportunity actually through some of the new technology platforms that are out there for India with the skilled workforce distributed throughout the country, with the ability now of technology to connect with people more instantly. You know, there's demand around the world that is looking for skilled labor. This idea of immigration is such a hot topic now, and a difficult topic. But meanwhile, the moving, as we were talking earlier, the moving of work to people, I think, is easier than ever before. So I think there's a great opportunity. There are technology platforms. Technology, I think, is a part of that. The staffing industry, I think, is, in a lot of ways, can be that last mile of connection, the local connection for that. So you know, I think there's great opportunity to do that by bringing the work to people, and obviously that's already been happening, but there's a lot more way to go, because that sort of way of working, I think, as I mentioned earlier, has really previously been the domain of large, sophisticated multinationals. More and more, the democratization of the technology is going to make it available to all sorts of organizations and workers of all types.
Thank you, Barry. I'd like to summarize before we throw open the panel to questions from the audience. So basically, some of the key challenges that are there before us as we look forward to creating work for the future are: one is technology. How do we effectively use it? Second is, how do we migrate the unorganized sector to the organized in a fruitful way, because they are also contributing to job creation? And then what are the ways in which new HR solutions could be developed specifically to cater to on-demand services, or to take the jobs to where the requirement is, or to take the requirement where the job is, or where the provider of the job is, the worker is, etc. So I'd like to now invite questions from the audience. So you could either address it to anybody particular in the panel, or it can be an open question.
Could the panelists say what their greatest concern is? What keeps them awake at night concerning their businesses?
I can take it. Yeah. What keeps us awake at night? I'll just give it a shot while everybody else is going to jump on it. It's a long question. Till the end of the session, we'll talk about it. I think the huge potential out there and how to go to the market in a strategic way so that we don't miss out. It's like drinking from a fire hose, one. Two, when technology is not as deeply embedded, the ways in which things can go wrong, whether it is on compliance or the overly regulated workspace, what one thing can go wrong that can just bring us down are the things that as leaders that one would worry about in my mind.
Anyone else would like to take that?
I think the over-regulation of the economy and how do we make that as deregulated as possible or make a lot of things more central rather than state-owned. Because what is happening is in India, it's a very complex market to kind of work in with different states, different languages, different domains, and different expertise that one is looking at. And how do you bring all that together on a common platform to make it happen?
I would say the very low margins India is working at. And adding to that, the multiple regulations that are there from every side. And the larger company you are, the more you are picked on. Yeah, you are picked up on. And a small change in regulation, I wouldn't say change in regulation, a small disclosure or a small discovery will make a huge impact because we are working at 1.5, 2% EBITDA lines.
Hi, Tom Hadley from the REC. Barry, you mentioned two trends. One was the move towards managed services increasing. The other trend, an increase in skilled levels, including in the contingent workforce. Are those two trends compatible? Because one thing we've seen in the UK is managed services being used to bring in high-level interim managers, for example, and it hasn't really worked with no contact between the agency and the end user. So interesting in your views on that.
Yeah, so I think that the higher-end skills and managed service sort of models, I don't think those are incompatible at all. It really depends how those models are implemented. There are sort of good and productive ways to do that. These whole, the issue of communication between hiring managers and the agencies filling the work, those issues can be solved. There have been, in the past, I think, heavy-handed and uninformed implementations of those types of models. And so, they've really been focused historically, or at first, were really about taking margin out of the business. And this got started in the U.S., where there was a lot of margin to give. I think that now it's much more about visibility and control, and organizations needing just to know what they're spending, to know the skills they're using. And so, into the future, I think that's a natural thing if you're a large client to want to have this information. And so, I think we will see more of that, but we're also going to see a more strategic use, and I sort of alluded to that, of companies are going to start to stop focusing so much on driving the cost per hour down and start focusing more on actually solving the business problem and the strategic use. And I think that'll be the next step, but it is going to take some time.
Thank you. We have a question.
Thank you so much for nice presentation. We talked about demand, supply, digitization, technology. I have a question on compliance and as well as on taxation. Today, the taxation is just about 15%, and that too, clients are finding difficult to pay because you know that our service charge is around 5%, where taxation is 15%. If the GST comes, it will be around 20 to 22%, So what do you see the future in terms of staffing when the GST comes about 20 to 22%? The second is compliance. You know that EFO has now almost decided that the pension fund which we are depositing, employee can withdraw when they retire, So what will be the impact on this from the employee angle?
Anyone would like to take that? Yeah.
No, I think these challenges, taxation is a given thing. This is an opinion that I'm expressing. And the valuation of our services or the pricing of the services should be based on the actual cost and the value we offer. Today what is happening is there's a common misperception across India Inc. where the flexibility, when we say there's a flex workforce, they apply the flexibility to the flexibility in the cost. The flexibility is in their ability to take up the workforce and take it down depending on the supply and demand. But often it is misconstrued as, hey, here is my budget. So you cut the corners, you do what you need to do. So get me the most cost advantageous, low cost. So it's almost seen as a cost cutting opportunity to flex something. That's not the right approach because it's a misperception. So there is a lot of awareness, as AG was alluding to a few minutes ago, in terms of bringing this unorganized sector into organized or bringing a further awareness of how to adopt and utilize the flex workforce and where is the flex applied is what we need to do. So I don't think there is I don't see taxation. Taxation is an imperative. Probably there's not much we can do. We can go lobby and say like, hey, we don't need blah percentage, we can get it down. But the thing is the tax is passed through to someone and as opposed to being stuck with it and trying to cut corners. That's where the industry will hurt itself. So I think the taxes are simply a pass through. So we got to look at what business can offer as value and price it appropriately and not cut corners and compete in terms of creating non-compliance. That would be a bad way to go on a slippery slope. That's my opinion, if I understood the question right.
I think just to add to that, Yadavji, I think it's the value that you create for the company that you're employing people to. And I think if we drive it through the value that we create, organizations would be willing to pay that additional 2, 3, 4%, whatever it comes to. Because I think what's happening is, by and large, most of the staffing firms are not doing nothing more than just payrolling people. And because you're not adding to the value, and once you start adding value to and design customized solutions which are, adding that value for that organization, most organizations would be willing to pay that additional 2, 3, 4% because they see as what your staff is doing for them.
Thank you. We have time for one last question.
Can you just raise your hand? We can't see you. Oh, the gentleman in the last row. Wow, the backbenchers are all alert and awake. Lovely to see that, sir.
Very good afternoon, friends here. Myself, Govin. I started my own HR consulting firm after spending more than 20 years in the industry as an HR leader. I personally consider one of the challenges, I agree with some of the views on cost and also the taxation related. As an HR leader, when I wanted to hire for my organization, the first preference is to go for a full-time employee. So the mindset of the organization is, if it's not a non-value adding job, it's something which you don't value much, then go for a staffing company. Now, in the last 10 years, I could see some kind of change in the employee's mindset, especially from the Indian context. So to me, the one major challenge, looking at India versus the rest of the world, especially the US market, the contract staffing in the US is like well preferred. In fact, people jump for a contract job.
Sorry to butt in, sir. We really are left with just 2 more minutes. Can you just be concise?
So I just want to ask the leaders here,
please.
is there any way that we are going to address this cultural change in the Indian market? How are we going to motivate the employees to look at contract staffing is also equally an attractive option rather just falling only for the permanent job?
Anyone would like to take
I just to say, I think there's a huge role here for the ISF, the Indian Staffing Federation. It's really an education role among buyers. To me, it's the organizations need a different view of contingent work, and they need to be thinking of total cost of ownership as opposed to just around sort of reducing costs at a particular point, and they need to start seeing the value of just-in-time resources. So you guys are doing the work here. But it's a long-term educational project, at least in my opinion.
You rightly mentioned cultural change, and that cultural change has to start from our homes, right? In our homes, we ask children or like kids who have just started working. The parents ask him, "Kidhar kaam karte ho? Where do you work?" And the answer is so-and-so company. And then the next question is it a permanent job? Is the next question. Why should he be in a permanent job? Because the other issues of, oh, then how will you get married? You won't be able to find a good spouse. These are issues that come up. So going back to the cultural change, if we are able to protect the job security, the wage security, and the social security of this sector of temp staff, then automatically it's the value that we provide to them as a job are going to go up. And therefore, our families will start respecting those rules. So it's a long process. It's going to take some time.
Very well put. And
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all of you, and thank you all panelists. I hope you guys have had a fruitful exchange of thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Reddy, for moderating this session. And we would like to commemorate the occasion by presenting a small token of appreciation, for which may I please invite on stage Ms. Michelle Slevin, Director Marketing Indeed, to kindly present mementos to our esteemed panelists on the stage. Ms. Michelle Slevin. I believe she's just gone out. May I please request Mr. Thuporna to kindly come on stage and felicitate our panelists up on stage, starting with our moderator, Mr. Rajasekhar Reddy, Mr. A.G. Rao, Mr. Asim Handa, Mr. Moorthy Uppaluri, Mr. Angelo Vecchio, and Mr. Barry Asin. Thank you so much. May I please request all the dignitaries to kindly step forward ahead of the table for a group photograph. Thank you so much. Well, would like to thank once again our panelists.